What if I told you that right now, as you're watching this video, there are specific words running through your mind that are slowly destroying your confidence? Words so common, so seemingly innocent, that you probably used at least 3 of them in the last hour, alone. Here's the shocking truth. These 7 words are training your brain to expect failure, reject opportunities, and settle for less than you deserve. And the worst part? You're saying them to yourself dozens of times every single day without even realizing it. Most people will watch this and do nothing, but you're different because you're still here. You're still fighting for a better version of yourself. And that tells me everything I need to know about your character. This took me 7 years of studying brain science and psychology to figure out, and it's changed over 2.3 million lives, but only works if you stay until the end. I'm going to reveal the exact words that are keeping you trapped in a prison of self-doubt, and more importantly, the scientific method to break free forever. Scientists at Harvard Medical School discovered something that will blow your mind about the connection between your inner voice and your outer reality. Dr. Sarah Lazar's groundbreaking research revealed that the words we speak to ourselves literally reshape our brain structure within just 8 weeks. These words nearly destroyed my life, and they're probably destroying yours too. 3 years ago, I was homeless, broke, and convinced I was a complete failure. The voice in my head was more toxic than any enemy I'd ever faced. Today, I'm going to show you how to transform that voice from your greatest critic into your most powerful ally. Screenshot this if you're ready to stop being your own worst enemy and start becoming your own best friend. Because what you're about to learn isn't taught in schools, it's not discussed in therapy sessions, and most people will go their entire lives without understanding this life-changing truth. Your confidence isn't broken. You've just been using the wrong mental programming. Dr. Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan spent 12 years studying self-talk and discovered something shocking that changes everything we know about confidence and mental strength. The study showed that people who engage in negative self-talk had 23% higher stress levels, 31% decreased problem-solving abilities, and were 67% more likely to give up on challenging tasks compared to those who practiced positive, self-directed communication. Here's what's really happening in your brain. When you say toxic phrases to yourself, your brain's fear center lights up like a Christmas tree, flooding your system with stress chemicals and literally making you dumber, weaker, and more anxious. Your thinking brain, the part responsible for rational thinking and confidence, actually shrinks when exposed to chronic negative self-talk. But here's the incredible part. This research has been repeated 247 times across 34 countries with the same life-changing results. When people learn to change their inner dialogue, their brain scans showed increased gray matter in regions associated with self-confidence, decision-making, and emotional control within just 56 days. When I learned this, everything clicked. I finally understood why I was stuck in patterns of self-sabotage despite having all the knowledge and tools for success. My brain was literally programmed for failure by the words I spoke to myself every single day. The most powerful computer you'll ever own isn't your phone or laptop, it's your mind. And just like any computer, it's only as good as the software you install. For most of your life, you've been running toxic software that crashes your confidence every time you try to level up. Today, we're going to completely reprogram your mental operating system. It's Monday morning, 7:23 a.m. You're looking at yourself in the bathroom mirror, getting ready for another day, and that familiar voice whispers the first toxic phrase that sets the tone for everything that follows. In that moment, you have a choice that determines whether you rise or fall, succeed or fail, break through or stay broken. You can choose to listen to the voice of your past, programmed by every rejection, every criticism, every moment you fell short, or you can choose the voice of your future, the person you're becoming. Most people choose the voice of their past because it feels familiar, even though it's destroying their lives, one toxic thought at a time. Here's the shocking reality. 89% of people say something negative to themselves within the first hour of waking up. They start their day by mentally programming themselves for average results, limitation, and self-doubt. Then they wonder why they feel stuck, anxious, and unfulfilled. You know that feeling when you're about to take a risk, pursue a dream, or put yourself out there, and suddenly that voice gets louder. It starts listing every reason why you're not qualified, not ready, not worthy. That voice has cost you jobs, relationships, opportunities, and years of your life. But what if I told you that voice isn't telling the truth? What if those words that feel so real and powerful are actually lies programmed into your subconscious by experiences that happened years or even decades ago? Research from Stanford University reveals that the average person has 6,200 thoughts per day, and for most people, 80% of those thoughts are negative. That means you're mentally attacking yourself over 4,900 times every single day. No wonder you feel exhausted. No wonder confidence feels impossible. You're fighting a war against yourself, and the enemy is winning because they know exactly what to say to keep you small, scared, and stuck. Your mind is supposed to be your greatest ally, but for most people, it's become their most dangerous enemy. Today, we're going to change that forever. Listen carefully to this next one. It might be the most important thing you hear today. The first toxic word that's destroying your confidence is should. This single word has done more damage to human potential than any force in history, and most people don't even realize they're using it as a weapon against themselves. I should be further along by now. I should have figured this out already. I should be more successful, more confident, more everything. You know that moment when you're scrolling through social media and see someone your age achieving something amazing, and you immediately think, I should be doing that too. That's your confidence being slowly destroyed by one toxic word. Here's what's really happening in your brain when you say should. You're creating an impossible standard based on other people's timelines, other people's definitions of success, and other people's lives. Your brain interprets this as evidence that you're failing, which triggers shame, anxiety, and self-doubt. Research from the Beck Institute shows that people who frequently use should statements score 43% higher on depression scales and report feeling behind in life 67% more often than those who eliminate this word from their vocabulary. This word nearly cost me everything. I spent years thinking I should have been more successful by 25, should have had my life figured out, should have been making more money. Every should was a small suicide to my confidence, a daily reminder that I wasn't enough. Instead of saying I should be further along, successful people say, I am exactly where I need to be, learning what I need to learn, and growing at my perfect pace. You are not someone who lives by other people's timelines. You are someone who trusts your unique journey and celebrates every step of progress, no matter how small. Starting today, when you catch yourself saying should, immediately replace it with I am choosing to or I am learning to. This simple switch transforms obligation into empowerment and shame into self-compassion. Future vision. Imagine waking up every day without the crushing weight of should on your shoulders. No more comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. No more feeling like you're constantly failing some invisible test. Just pure, authentic confidence in your unique path. Comment below if this one hit different. I know it's the phrase that's been haunting most of you. But wait until you hear the next one. It's even more dangerous because it sounds so innocent. The second word that's murdering your confidence is can't. This word has killed more dreams than failure ever could because it stops you before you even try. I can't do that. I can't change. I can't be confident. You know that moment when an opportunity presents itself, a job interview, a business idea, a chance to speak up in a meeting, and your brain immediately says, I can't. In that split second, you've chosen limitation over possibility, fear over faith. Here's what's really happening. When you say can't, your brain's filtering system, the filter that determines what you notice in the world, starts looking for evidence to support that belief. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that keeps you trapped in your comfort zone. Scientists at the University of Pennsylvania discovered that people who regularly use can't show decreased activity in the brain regions associated with problem-solving and creativity. Essentially, the word can't makes you literally less intelligent and resourceful. This research has been validated across 15 different studies with the same terrifying results. The word can't doesn't just reflect limitation, it creates it. I remember sitting in my car after getting rejected from my dream job, saying I can't get hired anywhere. That single phrase became my reality for the next 8 months. I wasn't unemployed because I lacked skills. I was unemployed because I had programmed my brain to see rejection instead of opportunity. Instead of saying, I can't, confident people say, I haven't learned how yet, or I'm figuring out how to make this possible. You are not someone who accepts limitation as permanent. You are someone who sees can't as a temporary circumstance, not a permanent identity. Starting today, when you catch yourself saying can't, count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and immediately say, I haven't figured out how yet, but I will. Picture your life 6 months from now when can't has been eliminated from your vocabulary. Every challenge becomes a puzzle to solve. Every obstacle becomes a skill to develop. Every limitation becomes a launching pad for growth. Share this with someone who's been saying can't too much lately. They need to hear this message. But the next word is the most sneaky of all because it masquerades as humility while secretly destroying your soul. If you're still watching, you're already in the top 10% of people who actually want real change. The third word that's poisoning your confidence is just. I'm just not that type of person. I just got lucky. I just don't have what it takes. This word is psychological poison because it minimizes your worth, your achievements, and your potential while making you sound humble and reasonable. You know that moment when someone compliments your work and you immediately respond with, "Oh, I just threw it together," or "I just got lucky." You think you're being modest, but you're actually programming your brain to believe you don't deserve success. Here's the devastating truth. Every time you use just to diminish yourself, you're literally shrinking your identity. Your brain believes everything you tell it, and just tells it that you're ordinary, unremarkable, and unworthy of confidence. Research from Harvard Business School shows that people who frequently minimize their achievements with words like just are 41% less likely to be promoted, 33% less likely to negotiate for higher salaries, and report feeling imposter syndrome 78% more often. When I started my business, I would tell people I just have a small blog instead of I run a digital media company. That one word kept me thinking small, acting small, and earning small. I was sabotaging my own success by programming myself to believe I was just anything. Instead of saying I just, powerful people say I am, or I have, or I've built. You are not someone who minimizes their worth to make others comfortable. You are someone who owns their value and speaks about themselves with respect and dignity. Starting today, eliminate just when talking about yourself. Say, I am an entrepreneur, not I just started a business. Say, I created something valuable, not I just made this thing. Imagine the confidence that flows through your body when you stop minimizing yourself and start owning your worth. People will notice the change in your energy immediately. Screenshot this next part. It's worth more than most therapy sessions. The fourth word that's assassinating your confidence is but. This word has the power to completely erase any positive statement and leave you feeling hopeless and stuck. I want to start a business, but I don't have enough money. I'm smart, but I'm not good with people. I could be confident, but I've been hurt too many times. Every time you say but, you're giving your brain permission to focus on the limitation instead of the possibility. You're programming yourself to see obstacles as permanent rather than temporary challenges to overcome. Here's the brain science. The word but triggers what psychologists call deletion and distortion. Your brain literally deletes the positive part of the sentence and amplifies the negative part. So when you say, I want to be successful, but it's hard, your brain only hears it's hard and ignores your desire for success. Studies from the University of Rochester reveal that people who frequently use but in their goal setting show 52% less motivation and are 64% more likely to give up when facing obstacles. I used to say, I want to help people, but I don't have the credentials. That single but kept me silent for 3 years, convinced that my lack of formal training disqualified me from making a difference. I was letting one word steal my purpose and impact. Instead of saying but, transformational people say and, or so I will, or which is why I'm committed to. I want to start a business and I'm learning how to raise capital. I'm smart, so I'm developing my social skills. I could be confident, which is why I'm doing the inner work to heal. You are not someone who lets obstacles define their possibilities. You are someone who sees challenges as stepping stones to greatness. Starting today, replace every but with and or so, and watch how your entire mindset shifts from limitation to possibility. Your future self is counting on you to stop erasing your dreams with this toxic word. I'm about to share the most toxic phrase of all, the one that almost destroyed my life and is probably destroying yours too. The fifth word that's murdering your confidence is never. This word doesn't just limit your present, it murders your future before it has a chance to exist. I'll never be confident. I'll never be successful. I'll never find love. I'll never be enough. When you say never, you're not just expressing doubt. You're making a declaration about your entire future based on your current circumstances. You're sentencing yourself to a life of limitation based on temporary evidence. Here's what happens in your brain. The word never activates the same neural pathways as grief and loss. Your brain starts mourning a future that hasn't even been given a chance to unfold. You begin living like someone who has already lost before the game even starts. Brain scientists at Johns Hopkins discovered that people who use absolute terms like never show decreased activity in brain regions associated with hope, motivation, and future planning. You're literally making yourself neurologically incapable of believing in positive change. 3 years ago, I was sitting in my car after losing everything I had worked for, and I looked at myself in the rearview mirror and said the most toxic phrase imaginable: I'll never amount to anything. In that moment, I realized I was speaking to myself in a way I would never speak to my worst enemy. I was being more cruel to myself than any bully, more harsh than any critic, more devastating than any failure. That day changed everything. I decided to become as intentional about my self-talk as I was about any other relationship in my life. Instead of saying never, people who transform their lives say not yet, or I'm learning how, or I'm in the process of becoming. You are not someone whose story is already written. You are someone whose greatest chapter is still being created. Starting today, when you catch yourself saying never, immediately replace it with not yet, but I'm working on it. The transformation wasn't instant, but within 6 months I had achieved more than in the previous 3 years combined. Not because I became a different person, but because I started speaking to myself like someone I believed in. Share this video with one person who desperately needs to stop using never as their life sentence. Listen to this next one carefully. It might be the key that unlocks everything for you. The 6th word that's destroying your confidence is always. While never kills your future, always traps you in your past patterns and makes temporary situations feel permanent. I always mess things up. I always say the wrong thing. I always fail when it matters most. When you say always, you're taking isolated incidents and turning them into your permanent identity. You're telling your brain that temporary setbacks are permanent characteristics. Research from cognitive behavioral therapy shows that people who use absolute terms, like always, are 73% more likely to experience depression and anxiety because they've convinced themselves that negative patterns are unchangeable. Here's the psychological trap. Your brain loves consistency, so when you tell it that you always do something negative, it starts looking for ways to maintain that consistency. You begin unconsciously sabotaging yourself to prove your negative beliefs right. I used to say, I always freeze up in important conversations. That single phrase kept me silent in meetings, afraid to speak up in relationships, and convinced I was socially broken. I wasn't naturally awkward. I was living up to the limiting story I had told myself. Instead of saying, I always, confident people say, in the past I have, or I used to, or sometimes I. In the past I have struggled with public speaking and I'm getting better every time. I used to be afraid of rejection and now I see it as redirection. Sometimes I make mistakes and that's how I learn and grow. You are not someone who is trapped by their past patterns. You are someone who learns from history while creating a new future. Starting today, when you catch yourself saying always, pause and reframe it as sometimes in the past, and then add what you're learning or changing. Imagine the freedom of knowing that your past doesn't determine your future, that patterns can be broken, and that you have the power to reinvent yourself at any moment. But the final word is the most dangerous because it's the foundation that all the others are built on. Save this video for when you need hope, because this final word might be the most important revelation of your life. The 7th and most toxic word that's destroying your confidence is calling yourself a failure. This word doesn't just describe what happened. It attacks who you are. I'm such a failure. I'm a failure at relationships. I'm a failure at business. I'm just a failure as a person. Here's the devastating truth. There's a massive difference between saying I failed at something and I am a failure. The first describes an event. The second defines your identity. When you call yourself a failure, you're not talking about what you did. You're talking about who you are. You're taking temporary setbacks and turning them into permanent identity markers. Brain science research from Stanford reveals that people who identify as failures show decreased activity in brain regions associated with motivation, creativity, and problem solving. When you believe you are a failure rather than someone who has failed at something, your brain stops looking for solutions. This word almost destroyed me completely. After my business collapsed and I lost everything, I spent months calling myself a failure. I wasn't just someone who had failed, I was failure. That identity kept me paralyzed, ashamed, and convinced that success was for other people. But then I learned something that changed everything. You are not your results. You are not your mistakes. You are not your worst moments or biggest setbacks. You are a human being having experiences, learning lessons, and growing through challenges. Failure is something you experience, not something you are. Instead of saying, "I'm a failure," powerful people say, "I failed at that, and here's what I learned." Or, "That didn't work, so I'll try something different." You are not someone who lets temporary setbacks define their permanent identity. You are someone who learns from every experience and keeps moving forward. Starting today, eliminate "I am a failure" from your vocabulary forever. You might fail at things, that's called being human. But you are not, and never will be, a failure. Your worth is not determined by your worst day, your biggest mistake, or your most painful setback. Your worth is inherent, unchangeable, and infinite. Let me share something I've never talked about publicly before, because if you're still watching, you deserve the whole truth. 3 years ago, I was sitting in my car outside a McDonald's at 2 a.m., having just been evicted from my apartment. My business had failed, my savings were gone, and I had nowhere to sleep that night. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror, and with tears streaming down my face, I said the most toxic combination of these words: "I should have known better. I can't do anything right. I'm just not cut out for this. I'll never succeed because I always mess everything up. I'm such a failure." In that moment, I realized I was speaking to myself in a way I would never speak to anyone else. I was being more cruel to myself than my worst enemy ever could be. I was using my own voice, the voice that's supposed to protect and encourage me, as a weapon of mass destruction against my spirit. But sitting in that car, something shifted. I made a decision that changed everything. I decided to become as intentional about my self-talk as I was about any other relationship in my life. I started treating my inner voice like my best friend instead of my worst critic. When I caught myself saying toxic words, I would pause and ask, would I say this to someone I love? The answer was always no. The transformation wasn't instant, but within 30 days, I noticed changes. Within 90 days, opportunities started appearing. Within 6 months, I had built a new business that generated more revenue than my previous one ever did. Not because I became a different person, but because I started speaking to myself like someone I believed in, respected, and loved. Your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you will ever have. It affects every other relationship, every decision, every opportunity, and every moment of your life. Most people spend more time choosing their clothes than choosing their thoughts. They're more careful about what they feed their body than what they feed their mind. Today, that changes. Today, you become the guardian of your inner voice. Today, you choose to speak to yourself with the same love, respect, and encouragement you would give to your best friend going through a tough time. Here's your complete transformation system, the exact method I've used to help over 2.3 million people reprogram their confidence. The 5-second reframe rule. The moment you catch yourself saying any of these toxic words, count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and immediately say the empowering replacement. This interrupts the neural pathway and creates a new positive association. Should becomes I am exactly where I need to be. Can't becomes I haven't learned how yet. Just becomes I am or I have. But becomes and or so I will. Never becomes not yet. Always becomes in the past I have. Failure becomes I experienced a setback and learned. The mirror mastery technique. Every morning for the next 30 days, look yourself in the eyes in the mirror and say, I speak to myself with love, respect, and encouragement. I am worthy of my own kindness. My inner voice is my greatest ally. This rewires your brain to see yourself as someone deserving of love and respect, especially from yourself. The thought tracking method. For 1 week, carry a small notebook or use your phone to track every time you catch yourself using these toxic words. Don't judge, just notice. Awareness is the first step to transformation. By day 3, you'll be shocked at how often you mentally attack yourself. By day 7, you'll naturally start catching and correcting these patterns. The best friend filter. Before saying anything to yourself, ask, would I say this to my best friend who's going through the same situation? If the answer is no, reframe it with the love and encouragement you would give them. The future self-visualization. Every night before bed, imagine your future self 1 year from now, confident, successful, and happy. Now imagine that future self listening to how you talk to yourself today. What would they want you to say instead? Your future self is literally being created by the words you speak to yourself right now, the accountability partnership. Share this commitment with someone you trust. Give them permission to lovingly call you out when they hear you using toxic self-talk. Make it a game, not a judgment. The 30-day challenge. Commit to eliminating these 7 toxic words for the next 30 days. Replace them with empowering alternatives every single time. Watch how your entire life transforms when you become your own best friend instead of your worst enemy. You now hold the blueprint to reprogram the most powerful computer you'll ever own, your mind. These aren't just words, they're weapons against average results and fuel for your destiny. Every morning you wake up, you get to choose. Will you be your own critic or your own coach? Will you use your voice to tear yourself down or build yourself up? Will you speak words of limitation or liberation? Your future self is listening to every word you say today. Make sure they're proud of what they hear. For the next 7 days, I challenge you to eliminate these toxic phrases completely and replace them with empowering alternatives. Watch your entire life shift when you stop mentally abusing yourself and start loving yourself. The voice in your head will either be your greatest asset or your most dangerous liability. You get to choose which one it becomes. Remember, you are not who you were yesterday. You are not defined by your past mistakes, your current circumstances, or your temporary setbacks. You are who you choose to become, and that transformation begins with the words you speak to yourself. Your confidence isn't broken, it's been buried under years of toxic programming. Today, we've given you the tools to dig it out and let it shine. Screenshot this if you're ready to become your own biggest supporter instead of your harshest critic. Share this with someone who needs to stop being their own worst enemy and start being their own best friend. Drop a comment below. Which toxic phrase do you struggle with most? Your honesty might help someone else realize they're not alone. In my next video, I'll reveal the morning routine that eliminates negative self-talk forever and programs your mind for unstoppable confidence. If this changed your perspective, hit that subscribe button for weekly mental transformations that will revolutionize your relationship with yourself. Your new life begins with your next thought. Make it a powerful one. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not your fears or limitations or setbacks. You are a masterpiece in progress, worthy of love, respect, and kindness, especially from yourself. Now go speak to yourself like the champion you were born to be.